Alright, so hello and welcome to the pilot episode of the GPVWC Roundup. I'm Michael Pitman and I have with me today for the next 30 minutes Mr. James Kirk and Lewis McGlade. We'll be looking into review round 10 of the career ladder, the Whata-Designs British GP. So say hello, lads.
Hello.
Hello.
So hopefully you've all seen the races and you've been enthralled for the last 2 weeks now to have a bit of a reflect on what went on. So we're going to have a good talk about the Superleague to start with, our primary outfit here at GPVWC. So the race itself, obviously going forward, we had our championship leader now, Ruud Hestebrick, win the race for Nico Sports, with Lucas Euler in second for Midnight and Alex Cooper third for Midnight also. What did you guys think to the race?
Well, I mean, it was explosive at the beginning, wasn't it? We had a full race restart. Many people not very happy about it because I don't actually think there was that many retirements necessarily, but it was such a bad accident that it was decided that did go for a race restart, and unfortunately, one of the people that was most affected was Lee Morris for Kerno. Incredible return, actually, considering that all that happened with Nordschen, and unfortunately, he was one of the first retirements from the restart. But I've been so impressed with his whole attitude towards sim racing since his return, and he's working wonders with the Kerno at the moment.
Yeah, he does seem a lot happier having come back.
Yeah, I mean, with the restart, you've always got to wonder if it's a right decision, because it can be, just a really difficult choice to make whether you should restart a race. And there wasn't really that many retirements as you stated, but so many people were thrown out of position that it was very hard to judge where people were going. And so with that, I'm not sure if the race should have been red flagged or if it should have done. This is the thing, that these decisions are extremely hard to make, and where they benefit some people, they affect others in a negative way, and that's just the way these things work.
Yeah, I mean, I've never been a great fan of restarts, but if put yourself in that position as a race director, you've got half a minute, a few seconds to make that decision. Do you red flag it? Do you not? And like you say, it does affect everyone. So, but what's done is done and went on there. So, did either of you pick anyone out particularly that you thought had a particularly great drive?
I think Lucas Euler deserves a great shout. I mean, he was one of the casualties from the initial start and got himself back together. I don't even think he was that competitive in the early part of the race. I think he was struggling in the lower half of the top 10, and then throughout the race he just pulled himself back up into second position and stayed reasonably competitive with Heasterbeek. And I know, or at least I've heard in the forums, that Heasterbeek won't be here for Monza, the next event, so Euler has actually got a really good chance to retake the championship lead.
Yeah, and Heasterbeek, though, he's been on such great form with the fact of taking the win in Great Britain, Turkey and Korea. So winning the 3 of the last races, it's impressive form, and now he's in the lead of the championship. It's a shame that he won't be appearing at Monza, but he's on such a championship charge at the moment, and things are really looking good for Heasterbeek. And I think he did really impress in Great Britain.
Yeah, I can't disagree with you guys there at all. You think those two did a fantastic job from Ruud there, from pole through to the win. Can't complain. I wanted to give a little shout out to Junt as well, from what was a pretty poor qualifying at 19th to actually bring the car home in 7th. For Red Archer, it is definitely worth some consideration. And I know it was given a bit of time on the broadcast as well. Quite wanted to give a little shout out because they don't necessarily get it all the time. Mr. Paul Joseph.
Yes.
Pulling off an impressive little move at the end, getting the final point scoring position by actually overtaking his teammate on the final corner of the final lap and racing to the line. It was, I wouldn't want to be in that pit garage afterwards.
No, especially since Paul Joseph was the emergency driver, wasn't he? He wasn't even meant to be there. But, well, excellent job to get a point on debut, especially in Super League of all places.
As you mentioned, debuts, we had quite a few this time actually. With a few seat changes as we're with that time of the year, about halfway through, where we're looking at people's situations aren't the same as they were to start with. So some names people might not have seen previously. We had Sven de Vries for Nico as well.
I know that Sven de Vries actually, that was his debut. He made his debut in Spain, and I can't remember. I think he actually raced for Hawkeye then, and he retired unfortunately early on. But I mean, actually, that's another guy who I'd want to give a shout out to because he did an incredible job.
My apologies there, but yes, he did certainly. Bringing that guy home is really helping that team out now. I'm not sure whether we're going to see him next round at all. I'm hearing he might be in the car again. Another new debut we had was Ryan Walker in the Hawkeye. Obviously, we all see him in the further down the career ladder, but he again was a new guy on the scene. Who else we have? Miko Sukas in the Norwegian. So we're not the best of debuts, unfortunately for him, but nonetheless, it's a new name to see around. Casper Mortensen as well in the Constant, and then, like I say, Paul Joseph we had in the Green Stripes. So hopefully there'll be a few names that we'll be talking about over the coming races as well, as to impress us. So should we move on to championship standings, see how that all turned out for everyone? So, as we already alluded to, with Ruud Hesselbrick winning his third race in a row, he now takes over the lead of the championship by 5 points, so he's on 196 points to Lucas Euler on 191. So these two are the clear top two at the moment. Would you want either of you want to call who's going to be there at the end of the season?
It's always hard to tell. It is always hard to tell. We've got quite a long way to go in the season so far. I think these two will be battling out until the end, and that's what I think. That's what I hope will happen. Ruud Hesselbrick, though, is on really good form over the last few races, and I'm wondering what's going to happen in Italy because Lucas Euler needs to take advantage of that.
I think it's one of these situations where everyone would like to see Hesselbrick win more. I mean, he's made his breakthrough this year with Nijo, who have looked increasingly competitive over the last few races, and of course Euler very much did a Sebastian Vettel from 2011 last year, unfortunately, where the championship was dominated by Midnight. There's no other way you can put that. But what I want to see most of all is a good championship, and I think at the end of the day, it is going to be these two fighting for it. And personally, I don't mind who wins, but as long as it stays this close until the end of the season, then I think that's going to keep not just myself but everyone else interested in the championship.
Oh, I completely agree. This is a fantastic way to show off the GPVWC. We've got the top tier, two fantastic drivers in two different cars going for the championship. It's so close. It's making such a difference. And we've still got in third there Dave Carr-Smith. If he ever makes that return, he's the only other race winner we've had this year. Still somebody potentially could come back onto our radar. And that takes us on to the Constructors' Championship, where it's not quite as close, but still easily within touching distance. We've got Midnight on 319 points, and Nico on 283. And only slightly behind is then Torrent at 212, which is 71 points behind Nico there. So really, you're still probably talking the same top two as we were talking in the driver's standings. Can you see this being any different?
Well, it can definitely change. If you've got one person off form, dropping a load of points is quite easily to see someone fall away from the battle, but equally easy to see someone joining. I mean, of all the teams currently, which I think might have a chance of joining, I'd say Torrent look pretty strong. I mean, they've been banging in consistently good results at that team, and it's a new team as well. We forget this. This is their first ever time in Superleague, and they're doing extremely well. So I think, personally, Nijo and Midnight till the end again, but if someone's going to join the battle, it'll be probably Torrent, I'd say.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I just kind of think that Midnight at the moment have an advantage, obviously with a points advantage, which is obvious, but I still think that they can just pull something else out of the bag at a race situation with both of their drivers, and pulling something out of the bag with both drivers is key to get the most points haulage, and I think that's what Midnight have an advantage with, and I think that they'll take the Constructors' Championship by the end of the year. But that is such a hard call to make. That's just a wild guess, really, because these things, they can change so quickly. At any one point can two drivers not appear to a race, and then you've got a huge points haulage from another team, and So it's really hard to predict at this point. But that's where my guess is going to be. It's midnight.
I tend to agree with you there, Lewis. Although having said that, you can't be like James is there sitting on the fence. You can't quite rule them all out. But I definitely agree with you. They've obviously got the experience of last season as well. They know what they're doing. They're not there for no reason, are they? So from here, over the coming weeks, we'll probably be pulling in an interview or two. After this time being the pilot time, but anyone who fancies will be approaching you, I'm sure, and we'll get some interesting comments. But anyone who fancies us to particularly interview on, do get in touch or let somebody know. We're going to move on now, though. We're going to move slightly down the career ladder, because obviously being at GPVWC here, we have got 3 different series in our career ladder at varying different levels. The guys we'll be looking at here in the Supercup, which is our second tier, potentially could be your Superleague winners of the future. So we need to be looking at these guys as well. So this race, the Whata British Grand Prix for the Supercup, was won by Giuseppe Ranieri, and with Oscar Hardwick in second and Miku Sukas in third for Univision. How do we think the race went, guys?
Well, I mean, Ranieri's really coming into form, isn't he? He seems to be really at one with the car, and ever since he entered this championship, he sort of had that little spark about him, which you think the guy's going to do something great. But this, out of all the career ladder championships at the moment, this is the one I'm most interested in, because you've got Ryan Walker still not scoring wins, you've got Oscar Hardwick catching up on him, you've got Ranieri now catching up even more, and the fact of the matter is that there's still people coming into this series brand new, like Sukas, who off on his debut just scored a podium for Univision. We thought that Univision was going to have a hard time replacing Loknovsky. Apparently not, because Sukas is doing a pretty stand-up job there.
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, scoring a podium on debut is very, very impressive. Giuseppe Ranieri, though, has seriously impressed me throughout the season. And more to the point, in the last 2 races, he's just been consistently in the right position. He got a retirement in Monaco, but ultimately he's just been consistently in the right place, scoring those points that he needs, and he is gaining very quickly on Ryan Walker. Obviously, Oscar Hardwick is gaining on Ryan Walker as well. And Walker's still, we've said this in the broadcast, that Ryan Walker needs to take that win to go for this championship. But he's just never been in the correct place to have that opportunity. And I think that's costing him, that could in the end cost him a championship. When you consider Oscar Hardwick and Giuseppe Ranieri weren't there for the first 2 rounds. In Giuseppe's place, he wasn't there for the first 3, and yet he's still third in the championship and 51 points behind Ryan Walker, and it seems like he's closing that gap faster and faster every single race.
Oh, definitely. I mean, these cars, being the Supercup compared to the Superleague, these are all the same. So it really shows your driver's skill. Whereas on the, like I say, the Superleague we were looking at, there's a small element of car that makes a difference. Whereas here, it is just that driver's skill. So you're right, Ranieri and Hardwick, to be honest, they're 40 odd seconds clear of the rest of the field. They are that level of driver, slightly ahead. I would expect them both to be easily able to grace the Super League next year. But you're right, we've got that interesting championship battle as well going on now, where you've got like Ryan Walker, who actually came 5th this time. He actually tried an interesting one-stop strategy. Don't know what you guys thought of that. I mean, would you think it was more of a desperation, maybe, to try and get himself up there, to try and do something different than to beat Ranieri and Hardwick, or was it actually tactical and thinking this could really set me aside from everyone else?
It didn't work.
I suppose that is the point. At the end of the day, his tyre went on the final lap, and he did drop an awful lot of time.
I'm not sure whether he practiced a one-stop and it worked fine in practice. If that's the case, then it's extremely unlucky that happened to him. But can't be throwing away points like this. If he doesn't have the pace to win, the least he can do then is at least try and get as many points in the bag as he can. And if he knew that he could go on the pace of everyone else and still get a podium with a 2-stop strategy, then quite honestly, I don't know why he didn't go for the 2-stop.
But then, sorry, Lewis, do you then look at that and go, well, if he's coming 3rd every time, that's still not going to be enough come the end of the year. He's got to do something different to get first and second.
It's better than fifth.
It's better than fifth, yeah. And also, what you got to
Is it worth the gamble?
It is. Well, you got to look at it this way. The gamble cost him. I mean, what's it? 5 points or something? Which that's another 5 points into his championship lead, which I think is like 9 or something, isn't it now?
Yeah, it's down to 8. Yeah.
8 even. You know, it's easy striking distance for Oscar. And we were saying it's probably striking distance for Oscar a couple of races ago. But the fact of the matter is that Oscar and Ranieri can still retire from races. They're not invincible. But the same applies to Ryan. And I think if this isn't a reminder to him that he can fail in races as well, then I don't know what will, to be honest, because he needs to bank the points and just hope that something might go wrong for the others.
To be honest with you, I quite admire him for trying it. I obviously run the team in this division as well, so I'm not going to be completely biased. But I mean, we looked at the one stop. It should have been technically possible, but as it happened, some of the don't know what it was at the time. It could be anything to do with track temperatures. There's many different reasons as to why it could have not worked out quite so well for him. But yeah, I mean, it could if he'd done a one stop and he'd won the race, we'd have all been giving him as much praise as you could possibly give. Whereas unfortunately, it's not quite worked out. There's an awful lot to lose in his case, isn't there? Like you were saying, I'd have thought it'd be worth a gamble. Was anyone else that seemed, apart from obviously the 3 that we talked about there in the championship, was there anyone else who stood out for you?
Go back to Sukas again.
Yeah, that definitely impressed me.
Was really good at Tom Parker as well. I mean, as I say, I didn't think Innovision would be that well off. I mean, they've lost both of their main drivers, as far as I'm aware now, in the form of Scott Bennett and Loknovsky. In Parker and Sukas, though, I see a bright future for them. They're currently sitting second in the championship now, and although I think CSG are a bit far off, I think that Innovision will quite safely secure second at this rate.
What about Tapper?
Well,
Tapper was in that race as well.
Well, obviously, I'll be very biased with this, so I'll be very quiet.
Did he run out? Did he not run out of fuel?
He did on the final lap. That was he actually had, looking into that, he actually had a rookie error in that he actually tried to do the one stop, decided with about 6 laps to go it wasn't going to do it, so went and pitted and actually didn't. He actually took fuel out and took too much out, and then ran out of fuel. So, but then the guy had only had 20 minutes training in the car beforehand, so strategy and everything was a little bit ad hoc during the race. So, ultimately, I'm not counting that against him, but nonetheless.
Even then, it was an impressive drive. I mean, he got a DNF, but still scored. He was ninth. Yeah. So that's still points on a debut in Supercup. So it's impressive stuff there from Tapper.
Well, hopefully we'll see a bit more of him at some point.
Yeah, you look at Formula Challenge. I mean, you could say that Tapper is one of the Super Cup winners of the future, along with the likes of Gagzella if he decides to move up. I guess David Fiddick, Thomas Jacobs. That bunch of drivers are the Super Cup drivers of the future, and the fact that Tapper's done so well and secured a top 10 on his first debut, I'm sure will give lots of confidence to the guys who are at the top of the field in that category, that they can move up and be competitive as well.
Yeah, do you think we'll see many? I mean, obviously there's a few driver changes. You were talking about the Innovision ones, and there's been a few teams. I mean, we had 21 drivers actually drove this race. So, I mean, do you think there's a chance for some of these FC guys to come on up?
Not the championship leaders, I don't think. I mean, if I was to put myself in their shoes, I think I'm fighting for a championship there. Why would I want to sabotage my championship chances to move up already?
Yeah, and I don't think Tapper should move across because I do seriously think he's in that championship. We'll get onto that in a minute.
Well, as you both alluded to it, let's go on to a Formula Challenge now. So that's our third series that we've got running here at GPVWC. So this one is actually slightly more complicated to talk about, but because we've got 2 races every evening, each evening that they run. So again, at the Whata-Designs GP, you guys actually race in this series.
We do. Yeah.
So
I raced in Silverstone. James didn't though. So.
No, I race in Istanbul. So I will be here for Monza.
As will I.
So we can get a good this series. We have a good first-hand opinion from you both as well. But so we've got 2 sets of winners. We've got race 1. We've already alluded to Dowie Tapper winning the first race with Thomas Jacobs in second, David Fiddick in third, and then race 2 came around where we have a reverse grid of the top, was it 19 in this round, I think?
I believe so.
It changed over.
Yeah.
So, the top 19, so if you came 19th, you started on pole for the second race, but in race 2, we had David Fiddick win. I do apologise if I get this wrong. Hansco Mebius, in second, and Martin Palm in third. So I like the reverse grids because it adds up a few names that I'm unfamiliar with as well. Sometimes at the top of at the start and at the end of the second race, so it gives everyone a good chance. But just looking at both races overall, how do we feel they went?
Well, I think Tapper, again, a deserved win. The boy's on fire. And myself and Lewis have been talking about constantly how Gagzella has not won a race since he came into the championship of Korea. And the championship is sort of on this knife edge now. It's sort of toppling over. The story was, how far can Gagzella get into the lead? To now, are these new championship contenders able to catch up to them? And at this rate, I'd say maybe, but possibly they're getting in each other's way now. I mean, it's gone to the stage where we've got 3 people fighting over for second, if you ask me.
Yeah, I mean, we've discussed this quite a lot throughout, previous conversations, where, you've got 3 people effectively going for the second place, the championship, or even the championship lead if they can push that far, which is Fiddick, Jacobs, and Tapper, but they're all fighting for the same space. Now, this normally happens in a championship anyway, but when there's a 110-point deficit between Fiddick and Gagzella, that's a huge gap. That's a gap that even one driver would probably struggle to go for over the next, there's 8 rounds left. Is that correct? 7 or 8 rounds left, and it's a lot of people trying to go for the same place. And I still think Gagzella, even if he doesn't fight hard, particularly over the next few races, I still think Gagzella's got this because he just needs to score some decent-ish points throughout the next few rounds, and he's got the championship because there's too many people going for that one space, and he's got 110 points in his pocket over everyone else.
Yeah, it is a formidable lead when you look at that. He's on 300 points. I mean, it just shows how dominant he was at the start. What I do like the 2-race system though means that if you win the first race, like I say, starting down in 15th, 16th, 17th, 18th, whatever, is so difficult to win the second race as well. Although we are seeing some of these guys coming right back up there. It just shows how good that drive is if they do that. But it does mean that there is that potential where Gagzella may not score great points in 2 races, even if he scores well in 1. And it's Formula Challenge. It's well known for crashes, pile-ups, anything goes.
That.
So you know
that's why you see these people from the back coming through. You can clearly tell who are the better drivers because they will not crash and they will score points in the end. As David Fiddick, I mean, that's a double podium right there, and that's because he just simply stayed out of trouble.
Well, certainly he's been impressed me over the last few rounds as a definite, and Thomas Jacobs together. They quite consistently can get themselves back up there again. You have got the problem though of, because it's obviously our sort of feeder series, I suppose it's the bottom tier of the ladder. You have got a lot of new guys in it as well, so you've got to be able to trust them in overtaking. So even if you're one of these top guys that's raced all season, coming back past somebody whose first race into the series and he finished 19th, suddenly finds himself on pole. There's a big element of trust there that can make or break your race. Let's move on to the actual how that looks in the championship table for the constructors. So you got Storm still sitting in first, which is Gagzella's team, with 414, but Simic, they're at 410, so only 4 points behind in second, and then there's a large gap of nearly 200 points. But those two, 4 points apart, you think
I did not realise that.
I did not realise that
wow.
either.
I haven't looked at the constructors' standings for a long time, but that surprised me, and I think Simic has got a very good chance of securing it. Clearly, I mean, their drivers, I think it's Pedro Milim and David Fiddick, great drivers, and if they can keep on capitalising on, well, I'm not sure whether it's McNaughton not pulling his weight or Gagzella's recent unluckiness, but they're certainly in with a chance if they're only 4 points behind.
I mean, it's very close. I mean, you look, McNaughton's actually sitting 6th in the championship standings. He's got 114 points. But then I suppose it's how consistent they both are. I think Sim and Cav just been we've seen Fiddick doing really well. Malim actually has done a couple of races up at Supercup as well, so they are doing great things there. So it's impressive to see if the consistency can still stay there. But that to me is obviously a lot closer battle. 4 points can change, between the race weekend as well.
Yeah, that looks like it's going to get really interesting. If that can stay that close for the rest of the season, that constructors battle is going to be really somewhere to look at. There's a lot of races. It is 8 rounds left, so that's 16 races. That's a lot of points on offer, and I reckon that constructors battle can get really, really interesting for the next few races.
Would either of you want to make a punt on that for the end of the year? Which one?
Okay. Now I'm going to go out with Storm purely for the fact of Gaxella. I still reckon he's got that consistency. He's just been bumped off of a little bit the last few races. I still reckon it's going to be Storm. Oh, that's a gamble.
I'll play devil's advocate and go Simic.
Okay, that's good.
I think I'll ask you both this every week we do this. And
Okay.
it'd be so interesting to see if it changes.
Okay. See how many times I
One
decide to change my mind over the next few months. Wonderful.
Certainly. So overall, if we look at all 3 championships, we've had an interesting time at Silverstone, really. The Whata-Designs Silverstone, which, by the way, was an absolutely gorgeous track. Must say thanks to Mr. Sean Stroud for the track. Any of you got a driver of the week from yourselves across all 3 divisions? I know it's hard to gauge between them, but if you had to say, that's my driver of Silverstone.
I would actually say David Fiddick for this week, purely because he's been on the podium twice, and not only has he been on the podium twice, he got a win in the second race, starting from halfway down the grid, and I think that's very impressive.
I'm going to go with I generally will quite a lot because he does really impress me across a lot of the races. But it's Tapper. Tapper, even in Supercup, running out of fuel, still scored points, was running in really good positions, and then in Formula Challenge to have only done about 6 races, and has won 3 of them, and has put the car in the right position every single time. He made one mistake really in that first race that cost him quite a lot of points, possibly a second place. Even a first if he'd have pushed that much. But Tapper's just always impressed me, and he did impress me a lot at Silverstone as well.
It's interesting you both punted for Formula Challenge guys there. I mean, I'd initially looked straight at Hesterberg. I mean, ultimately got to run the toughest league we've got from pole, or you look straight at Ranieri as well down in Supercup. Did the same thing from there. If I had to say, I'd probably have a look at Ranieri, actually. I think he was particularly strong and looked, considering the person chasing him down was Hardwick, I think he was particularly strong. That would be my driver of the week. So we'll see if all those 3 can do particularly well this time out at Monza. So we've got... You both looking forward to Monza?
No, it's bumpy.
I'm going to say yes, and it's bumpy.
I was going to say, maybe I'm just looking forward to it because I'm not driving it. Maybe I'm just watching and I enjoy it. But yes, I can understand if you're in the car and it's uncomfortable for you, Lewis.
Yeah, no, seriously. I think it's going to be a really enjoyable race. It's overtaking opportunities fairly difficult. There's 2 chicanes where you can get it done, and there's a few straight. So could be an interesting race. I'm going to say it's going to be quite an interesting race, but it is very bumpy. I reckon, me and James have been talking about this a little bit, that I reckon there's going to be quite a high attrition rate for all of the leagues at Monza.
I'd say watch Formula Challenge especially.
Yeah.
That's
first corner.
That first corner with 40 drivers is going to be an absolute nightmare, so should be good fun.
Well, hopefully we'll all glue to the telly and watch that, because we've got, obviously on the 16th, we've got the Formula Challenge, and then the night after, you got the Super Cup, and on the 18th, we've got our top division of Super League, doing the full race distance at the Monza Grand Prix, so I hope you'll all watching on them. If you do miss it, or you miss parts of it, you can always join us as well. A few days later, when we actually send this out again to you guys, we're going to be looking once again at who the winners, and maybe not so many, if James is right, potentially some losers as well. So we'll see. Hopefully it's not you guys. Just
Hopefully.
I'm hoping.
I'd love to come in here and celebrate with you both. And hopefully we'll see you all there at Monza. Any last words, guys?
Enjoy it. It's going to be a good week,
Yeah,
I think. It's
yeah.
going to be a good week.
Pick a driver and watch. I'm just actually going to state that my driver to watch will be. I'm actually saying this Gaxella in Formula Challenge because I reckon he's going to
Yes.
get back on it.
Oh, watching interest then, hey Lewis, and see what
Yeah,
he's
yeah.
gonna make such a big difference to that championship down there. So, thank you all for joining us, and thank you all for listening as well. And we'll speak to you in about a week's time.